Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart, and today's video is an unboxing of the new Union and Confederate Commanders for Warlord Games' Black Powder Epic Battles American Civil War range. Now, these miniatures are in their own scale, epic scale, which is 13.5mm to the eye, so slightly smaller than modern day 15mm, compare quite well to the older 15mm we had sort of 20 years ago or so, like the minifigs range, that kind of thing. Now, as it stands, I think these are out this weekend, the final weekend in January. My sets have just arrived, so I thought I'd do a review video straight away. And here you can see them on the Warlord Games website. Prices obviously in pounds for the UK. So this is the Confederate set of commanders. You get Robert E. Lee, Jackson, Stewart, Longstreet, and Hood as well. And then the same for the Union commanders. You get Grant, Meade, Sherman, McClellan, and Custer. Now these sets are £12 and they're in Warlord resin, or otherwise known as Siocast. Now the original commanders they released were special editions with the original set back when it released a couple of years ago, and then a little while after that, as part of the second or third wave, I can't remember which, they released commanders in metal as well. And with those you got Robert E. Lee and Jackson with a banner bearer, and you also got George Meade and Grant with a banner bearer as well. But that was it up until then, and people have been using alternative figure manufacturers. I know I picked up quite a few from Peter Pig, which are very slightly larger but not too bad for your commander models. Let's crack the box open and have a look inside. Now the sets match the ones they did for the Napoleonic range. Nice little small boxes with 5 miniatures inside. I'm guessing they were quite popular and they decided to continue the format. So first up we have Grant there. Now, as I said, this is Siocast or Warlord resin, so it's a slightly flexible resin, which is sometimes a little tricky to clear up, and we'll come back to that towards the end of the review. But the actual quality of the sculpt itself is pretty cool. Next up we have Meade. It's got quite a similar pose to the Sherman miniature, so when they're not painted it's quite easy to get them confused. Again, pretty good looking quality sculpt if you like the stylings. I do. I'm quite a fan of the aesthetic that Warlord Games have used with these. Now on to Sherman. Again, a quick scoot around the model so you get an idea of what they look like unpainted and outside of the box. Not an awful lot of flash and things to remove, which is always good with this material. Now we have McClellan. He's got quite a large support attached underneath the sort of the belly of the horse there, but I don't see that being much of a problem to remove at all. And as I've already mentioned, I'm going to clean a couple of them up and report back to you on how easy it was to do at the end of the video. And last but not least, we have a young Custer, which is quite a dynamic sculpt, and you'd expect it to be commanding cavalry. But all in all, a nice set of 5 little sculpts there. The ones that have already been covered originally have been redone in different poses. So now we move on to the Confederate Commanders. Let's crack them open and have a look. First up we have Jackson. Quite like this pose with his hat in the air like that. Again, I'm a big fan of the aesthetic and the style of them. They're quite small, realistic sized faces and hands and things, which I'm always a fan of with historical miniatures like this. So I like these. Now onto the Confederate versions of the cavalry commanders, and we have Jeb Stuart with his feather in his cap with a little bit of extra flash to remove there, but he's got quite a dynamic pose as well, charging, and he's going to be a fun one to paint. And now for Lee, we've already had a couple of versions for Lee. We've got the metal version, and we had the original Warlord resin version, which was a special edition. I've already painted one of these, and this is, I believe, a completely different version again. And another very cool version, of course, with these extra ones. You can paint them as different commanders as well. You're going to need a lot for the larger battles, so they're always useful, even if you already painted up a particular version. And for Longstreet, this was one that I wanted to get my hands on, so I quite like the look of this sculpt. They're all quite different. They've picked things about the personality or a famous pose or something. But either way, there is some variety in the poses of the commanders. And as I said, if you wanted to paint them as someone else, it'd be very easy to do. And then last up, we have Hood. And he's got a big chunk of flash between the gun and his head there. So that's the first one I've noticed with a chunk of flash that looks like it will need a bit more than trimming and filing, and need to get the blade in there to get rid of it. But we'll see how that goes, and he'll be one of the two that I clean up for the final part of the video. So make it a little bit more of a rounder review, I thought I would clean up a couple of the miniatures, and I've discussed these on previous reviews of Siocast and Warlord resin. So if you're a regular to the channel, you won't be a stranger to the arguments to and for Siocast. It's a cost-effective material, and I believe, having visited the factory up in Nottingham for Warlord Games HQ, that it's got a lot of sort of future potential. I know other companies are using it more and more as well. Battlefront Miniatures, who make Flames of War, are currently working on their mixes of the resin they use in their Siocast machines to improve the quality. One of the biggest complaints about Siocast is because of its rubbery nature, it can be quite hard to clean up, and when you file it, it leaves a lot of sort of residue rather than a smooth finish, and that's probably my biggest frustration with it. But also the flexibility means that they tend to be fairly durable, the miniatures as well, so it does have its benefits. The people that really hate the stuff will hate this, and no doubt there'll be a few dislikes on this video just because I'm talking about Siocast. That just tends to be the way it goes. It can be quite emotive for some people. It is what it is. It's not going anywhere, so it's about finding ways to work with it, but also finding ways to put pressure back on companies to make sure that they continue to improve the quality of what they do with it, and work on those formulas, and for the company itself, Siocast, to improve those machines to work on those formulas to enable to make it more and more fileable and easy to clean up. Now these weren't too bad, not too bad at all, and for commander miniatures, when you've not got to do 20, 40 for a regiment or something, it's not too painful spending those extra few minutes. I do find I use the blade a little bit more than I would do normally, so if it's a metal miniature I would trim the flash away and just file. I do find I need to go back in with the blade and trim little bits away here and there, but at the end I tend to find I get something I'm reasonably happy with. And the problem with the extra bit of flash between the gun and the hat, that surprised me a little bit for a brand new miniature just released. You see those things a little bit more when molds have been worn over time. I don't know if that was a one-off. It'd be interesting that other people, if you've received your versions of these, whether your hood miniature also had the same little defect. But to keep things in perspective, us experienced war gamers who have had miniatures in all different materials are used to clean up. That's part of the hobby. You do so on your plastic miniatures as well, and you do on your metals, and metals are definitely not excluded from large areas of flash that you have to trim away. So I think it's very easy sometimes to get caught up in the, oh, this is a Siocast problem. Well, it's a miniature casting problem, isn't it? Well, that kind of stuff. But all in all, they cleaned up pretty well, as you can see from the pictures here. I didn't really have to put in an awful lot more effort than I would do on a pair of metal miniatures. Like I said, you do get that slight annoyance with that filing and wanting to file, but not quite getting the really smooth finish that you may do with a metal miniature. But once these are primed and painted, you wouldn't show up too bad at all. And I'm quite happy with what I've got for the price I pay. I remember when I reviewed the Napoleonic Commanders, a few people thought they were way too expensive, and other people didn't. And as I said, there are alternatives out there. Peter Pig do a range of metal commanders, which I think are very nice. I prefer the aesthetic of these sculpts, so I would choose these over those. But I may well also have a mix of them within my army, so it's a kind of you choose what suits you best. And if Siocast is the off-putting problem there for you, go and pick up the metal versions from someone else. If you really like the aesthetic of the Epic range, then these are a perfect fit for it, and that's one of the things that attracts me. Anyway, I'll be interested in hearing your thoughts on these. I'm sure the comments will be slightly livelier than normal, it being a Warlord Games Siocast Warlord resin product, but that's to be expected. If this is the first video you've come across on the channel because you're looking for reviews of this product, do check out the other videos. There's plenty of Epic Battles stuff from Warlord Games, both American Civil War and Napoleonic. There's lots of World War II in 15mm, mostly Flames of War stuff, and other stuff on the channel as well, some Middle-earth and some Warhammer Fantasy looking stuff coming up in the future, and a recent tutorial. So do check those videos out. Give the video a like if you've liked the review. Don't give it a dislike if you just dislike the product. Remember, it's not my product, I'm just giving you my honest thoughts on it. And consider subscribing to the channel for future videos. Thanks very much for watching, take care, and I'll catch you soon.